Repulsive.
Welcome to your station 1999 Radio, where that's big. Good evening, Nightwalkers, YouTube explorers, and radio listeners. Welcome back to 1999 Radio. My name is Sebastian, and tonight I will be your host. Thank you for being here for a new broadcast of this, your midnight program. Today, we have a great show for you guys. Tonight, January 19, 2024, we begin transmission. Tell me, how did your week go? This week, I was able to watch VHS 99, released on 2022. I really liked it. The truth is that it's a horror candy for horror fans. The stories are very good. What I like about these movies is that they don't take themselves very seriously, but they always have little details that I find very, very original and good, especially in the very last video. I also watched VHS 85, released on 2023. It was a double feature. This one felt a little bit slower to me, but it still has its details that I like it. If you can only watch one, I will say go for VHS 99. In my opinion, it's better. I'm leaving the trailers for these two movies in the description in case they catch your interest. Now, let's quickly move to the birthdays of this week. On January 23rd, 1999, a movie that revived found footage arrived in theaters, The Blair Witch Project. I was fortunate enough to see it in theaters. This is one of those movies that many people love and also many people hate. I really like the idea and especially the ending. On January 25th, 1943, in Texas, Top Hopper, the creator of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, was born. He also gave us jewels like The Fun House, which is a very forgotten movie that I love, and the Salem Slot miniseries, based on the book from the master Stephen King. Happy birthday, Top Hopper. Also, in this very same day, but in 1963, the father of Chucky was born, Don Mancini. Happy birthday, Don Mancini. But well, now let's move on to the main topic of this episode. Various religions and mythologies around the world have their own deities and gods. Similarly, they have different realms for people who pass away. Now, in this particular case, we're not talking about being similar to what many know as the devil, which is in a way similar, but not exactly. And these places are also similar to hell, but at the same time, they are not. They are areas of the afterlife where deceased individuals are to be judged, in most cases. So, let's get ready for a journey to the underworld. Don't forget your coins for the ferryman, as we are going to meet its kings, gods, and rulers. I think there's no better place to start than with the Greek and Roman mythology. Hades, also known as Pluto by the Romans, is the elder brother of Zeus. Although the origin of his name is uncertain, it is generally said to mean the unseen one. He is depicted holding a bident, which is like a trident, but with 2 prongs instead of 3. He is depicted holding a bident, which is like a trident, but with 2 prongs instead of 3. He wears a cloak of invisibility and is accompanied by Cerberus, the 3-headed dog. Hades is the god of the underworld for the Greeks. He was called the collector of souls because he boasted about the powerful souls trapped in Hades, the Greek underworld named after a god and ruler. Unlikely today, death was not considered something bad. In fact, in general, Hades was considered a more altruistic god than others, exemplifying more passively than negatively. The Greeks avoided mentioning him much to prevent bad things from happening. Now, if you believe in the Norse deities, upon death you will encounter Hel, or Hela. She is the queen and goddess of the Norse underworld, the dead, and the graves. Her power is such that she is capable of holding even the gods from Asgard under her reign in Helheim. It is said that if you walk to her right, you will see a beautiful woman with white skin and rosy cheeks, a green eye that shines like an emerald, with red and soft lips. But if you walk to her left, you will see a dead and putrefied body with a black and bruised skin, a white and empty left eye, with lips stretched over skeletal teeth. She will judge you and decide in which part of her realm, Helheim, you will spend the rest of your eternity. But let's say you prefer warmer places. So let's go to Egypt, where upon leaving this world you will arrive in Duat, the land of the dead, the realm of the god Osiris, who will decide your fate after you have been judged by the god Anubis. Anubis will weigh your heart to see if you are just in word, and if not, to determine a fate worse than hell. Osiris, being the god of fertility, agriculture, the underworld, death, resurrection, life, and vegetation, was depicted with green skin, a pharaoh's bird, mummified from the waist down, wearing an Egyptian crown and a staff characteristic of the pharaohs. Anubis, on the other hand, is the god of the funeral rituals, protector of tombs, and guide through the underworld. Anubis was represented as a man with a canine head, usually a jackal, in black color, symbolizing regeneration, life, the soil of the Nile River, and the discoloration of bodies after death. His name means son of royalty, and among other names he was known as the one who devours millions. On the side of Hinduism and Buddhism, when you leave this world, your judge and master of your executioners will await for you, Yama. Yama is the god of the dead, the king of the underworld known as Patala. He appears mounted on a buffalo. As a being of green or black color, he holds a rope with a hangman's knot in one hand and a mace in the other. He is associated with righteousness and justice, usually serving as the judge, weighing the actions of the deceased and determining their fate in the next life. If you behave like a just person, you will go to heaven, known as Zarga, where you enjoy luxuries, but if you don't, you will go to hell, known as Naraka, where you will be assigned one of the 28 hells and suffer torture until you atone for your sins and can ascend. Now, in China is not so different. Upon death, you will be received by Jian Luo Wang, also known as Yama or King Yama. He is the king and sovereign of the underworld, and known as Diju, responsible for judging souls and determining the fate of the deceased based on their actions. He will assign you to one of the 10 circles of hell to atone for your sins through suffering, so that you can transcend or be reborn. King Yama is a tall man with an angry red face, furious eyes, and a long beard. He wears traditional judge clothing and a hat with the symbol of the king on top. But if you die in Japan, the one waiting for you is the Underworld King, Emma-O, the god and king of the Underworld, judge of the deceased. When you died, you are taken directly to King Emma-O, and he will decide your fate according to your actions. He will determine whether you go to hell until your next reincarnation. If you go to hell, there are 9 areas where you can await your reincarnation. King Emma-O is represented with a terrifying and stern face. He is often accompanied by Onis, a being similar to a demon, although the more common translation is the word ogre, and also by Kanan, a deity that intercedes to mitigate the severity of the judgments. But let me tell you that if you're in Mesopotamia, you won't find much leniency. In Mesopotamia, particularly among the Babylons, the Sumerians, and the Assyrians, there was the god Nergal. The god Nergal was associated with war, death, plagues, and the underworld. Like the other gods of the underworld, he was the judge of souls. He was described as a god who inflicts death. He reigns over Mesopotamian underworld, called Kur. He is depicted as a terrifying and aggressive warrior god, being responsible for plagues and pestilence. Nergal's nature reflects the harsh realities of life and death. One of his representations was a man with a lion's head, or him just riding a lion, symbolizing his aggression. But now, if we go to Mexico, passing away on this side will take you before the eyes of the god Mictlantecutli, the master of the underworld, known as Mictlan. Mictlantecutli is the god of the dead, and he was also known as Ispustec, which roughly translates to broken face. It is said that he could appear as a blood-stained skeleton, measuring 6 feet, or a man with a skull for a head. His eye sockets had eyes in it, and he wore a headdress adorned with owl feathers. He used a necklace made out of human eyes, and his earrings were made of human bones. It is said that he kept his arms always raised to destroy any being that entered the underworld, and had an open mouth to devour the stars at dusk. But Aztecs weren't the only ones. The Mayans had Huncame. His name translates as the dead, and Bucupcame, which translates to the 7 dead. Among the lords of the underworld, these two ruled most of it. The underworld is known as Xibalba, the world of the dead, which translates to place of fear. It is said that the entrance were near Guatemala and another one near Belize, and some people even believe that the Milky Way was the path to the Xibalba. Both Huncame and Bucupcame were known for their malevolent and destructive nature. Huncame was depicted as a skeleton, sometimes with spots like those of a jaguar, as the jaguar was closely linked to the underworld, while Bucupcame was also depicted as a skeleton, but he will have feathers to resemble a bird, and sometimes with a beak. Both of them wore macabre jewelry, emphasizing their connection with the Xibalba. Now, let's go a bit further down the map to the territory of the Incas. In the Quechua, Aymara, and Incan mythology, they had Supai, the god of the dead, and lord of the underworld called Ocupacha. Supai, besides being associated with the land of the spirits, was also linked with fertility, agriculture, and abundance. He is represented as a being that exists both in life and death, holding corn or plants in one hand and symbols associated with death in the other. Sometimes he has deer antlers or horns. He is also depicted holding a staff that identify him as a deity. He is associated with snakes, as in mythology snakes are said to be connected with the underworld. And finally, but not less important, the Celts. In Celtic mythology, the god of the underworld is Dun, which translates to the Dark One. He resides in the Tech Duin, which could translate as the House of the Dark One. It is said that Dun aided in the creation of the Blasket Islands of the west coast of Ireland. The legend tells that Dun had a daughter who was a mermaid. She fell in love with a mortal, and when he died, she went into the deep sea and eventually transformed into these islands. Sometimes, the Celtic festival of Samhain is associated with Dun. Samhain marks the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the winters. And as we know, it is when the line between this world and the underworld becomes thinner. It is said that Dun has both a benevolent and a malevolent aspect. Although he is the god of the underworld, he does not carry a negative connotation. In fact, protective and guiding aspects are attributed to him. He receives and guides the souls of the deceased through the underworld, known as the Land of Youth or Tir Na Nog. So tell me, to which abode would you like to arrive? Who will welcome us when we leave this world? I want to tell you that this show took a lot of effort to make, as I was able to gather much more information than I expected about this topic, and I was dying to share everything I found. However, I also didn't want to make the show too long, so you could appreciate all this information. So, this program is the beginning of a series dedicated to the underworld and its rulers, and I really hope you enjoy it. But well, that's how we conclude this week's episode. Before I go, I want to remind you that if you're an artist, a writer, musician, any type of horror creator or mystery related content, leave me your Instagram in the comments, for I will love to see the work that you're creating and hope to share it. I will leave mine in the comments just in case you guys want to chat a little bit. Also, if you like video games, my friend Death Gun Showtime has a Twitch channel where I sometimes jump to play a little Battlefield 5. If you can, go check it out and say hello for me. I'll leave his link in the description. Don't forget that this episode will be uploaded in Spanish as well, in case you have a friend who doesn't speak English, but it's interested in learning more about the rulers of the underworld. I want to thank the Repulsive for the music that accompanied this episode. Thank you for tuning in to 1999K Radio. Have a calm and chilly night, and don't forget that the abyss calls to the abyss. Good night.